In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Marianne's guests are leaders in their field, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in their own work. They teach others to develop, refocus, and grow. Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. And remember, make every moment count.
Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so excited to be introducing Bruce Turkel, and he's here today to talk to us about his new book, All About Them, Grow Your Business by Focusing on Others. So welcome to the show, Bruce.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, what a joy it is to have you here. You know, after reading your book, it's so easy to see why Bob Burg wrote the foreword for it. This is like the go-to book if you're in sales and marketing.
I have to tell you, when I asked him, I was expecting to get one of those, thank you so much, I'm honored you asked, but I don't have time, or I'm very, because, Bob Burg. But he said, oh, I'd be thrilled to. It almost knocked me over. And I think his introduction is better than the book, actually.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I would disagree with that because, man, when I started business, 14 years ago, if I had had your book when I first started business, it would have been a totally different game, but I had to kind of learn through the hard way on how to shift and make adjustments. And so I think it's real important that we talk about just the main differences and how businesses used to be and what that main change is now.
Sure. We all know that the world changed drastically because of technology. Some of us saw the changes, some of us benefited from them, some of us didn't see them, some of us are trying to figure out how to take advantage of them. But the one thing that I don't think people have noticed is the bigger issue about how technology has changed our customers. You see, it used to be that if you wanted to promote yourself, what you needed to do was blow your own horn. You needed to brag about yourself. You needed to tell people who you are and what you did. If you didn't, of course, how would they ever find out? But today we all carry these little magical devices in our pocket made from glass and silicon and smartphones, of course, that can answer any question we want answered. And Google and Siri and Alexa and all the rest of them, they know everything. And so anybody who's going to do business with you knows as much as they want to know about you before they ever see you face-to-face, email you, call you, walk into your office, your store, whatever. It doesn't mean, by the way, they know everything they need to know. It doesn't even mean they know anything. What it means is they know as much as they want to know. If they're information-centric, they have looked at your LinkedIn, they've looked at your Facebook, they've looked at your website, they've read your white papers, your blogs, whatever. If they're not, if they tend to act impulsively, then they haven't bothered. But the point is that information that we used to brag about, we don't need to do it anymore. So the question becomes, if we're not going to do that, what do we need to do?
Well, and people are so when I first started, everyone was so used to the mindset of, it's all, like how you're saying, it's all about what I can offer and me, instead of really getting to what is it that the clients or, their goals, what is it that they need, and then bringing them to a new level.
That's exactly true. In the old world, we bought products because of function. And I'll add services to that list as well. We bought products and services because of function. And the better a product functioned, the more likely you were to buy it and the more it was worth. Mercedes and Volvos used to be better automobiles. People would pay more money for them because they were better, they were safer, they lasted longer, they were more reliable. But today, two things have happened. Number one, most people who are buying expensive cars tend to lease them, meaning you're not going to keep the car more than 3 years. So really, what difference does it make if it turns out to be reliable or not? You're not keeping it that long. But second of all, because everything is based on computerization, globalization, everything is manufactured using the same tolerances, the same regulations, all products function. TVs work. That didn't used to be true, but now it is. All TVs work. All cars work. All professionals have great educations, have technology at their fingertips. And so if you're only selling based on the function of what you do, all you're telling your potential consumer is, hey, I'm just like everybody else. It's now time to do exactly what you said and talk about what it is you do for your consumer.
So I know that you are like this marketing guru that goes in and just whips companies and businesses, organizations into shape. City of Miami, Bacardi, just kind of name a few. Have you ever come across a company culture that you got into and either it just wasn't a fixable situation in changing it to this new paradigm, or it was something that they didn't want to change?
Of course. Now, I won't name any of the ones that didn't do it properly.
we won't name them, but
exactly. We're going to leave them out, Marianne. But yes, that has happened a number of times. Although I will tell you, it tends to happen less now. Having now written the books, being on TV all the time, working for these different clients. Just like I said about people know everything they want to know about you before they bring you in, chances are if someone is hiring me, they kind of know, they don't know what I'm going to do, but they sort of know what to expect, They're not hiring me to come tell them, hey, you guys are doing great. Just keep it up, guys. Just don't, keep pushing. I'm not a motivational speaker. That's not what it's all about. So it happens less and less. But yes, it does happen. I find that it also depends who we are hired by. Mm-hmm. CEOs have the sole responsibility of increasing shareholder value. They care about building their businesses. So if we are brought in at the CEO level or often the C-suite level, we're working with people who want to make a difference, they want to change, and they want to see something happen. If we're brought in from lower levels, sometimes those people are charged with improving shareholder value, but mostly they're charged with not rocking the boat, maintaining the bureaucracy, and not making more work for themselves. So going in at that level and saying, hey, here's what you ought to do, a lot of people are thinking, oh, man, that means work for me. Mm-hmm. But as I said, the more I do it, the fewer times I have to deal with that sort of thing.
You have such an impressive track record with companies that you've worked with and bringing them to new levels. I would doubt anyone would disagree with anything you propose. Now, I wish you
would tell that to my wife and children, by the way. You do that for me, please?
Hey, sure, I'll be happy to. We'll send them a copy of this,
Thank you.
So, getting back to your book, you talk about the age of transparency, and that kind of goes along with what we've been talking about. Because, everyone's so wired nowadays. And you're right. It's so easy for someone to look at your LinkedIn and look at who it is that you are online, and then and really kind of come up with an understanding of that. But in regards to the age of transparency, why doesn't this make our consumers smarter?
Because there's so much out there that who knows what to believe. One of the things that we hear in the political arena right now is all this about fake news. But let's face it, what a lot of us have been doing in advertising for years and years has been fake news. And I don't want to just pick on people in my industry. Think about on dating sites, what an age someone says they are or how they look in the photograph. That's fake news also. So the transparency what means that you can't get away with it anymore. We can, if we choose to, we can still find out what the truth is. It is available. However, you got to put in the work. You have to make the effort. And so a lot of people and ultimately a lot of companies don't actually do the work they need to do to make sure that what the information they're getting is accurate.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that can be a challenge to some degree, but when we market ourselves, and in regards to just our online presence, it has been more about what it is that we can offer. So when people go look at that, they get kind of an idea whether or not we're somebody they want to work with and kind of move forward in that way. Now,
absolutely.
Your book No, go ahead, please.
I was only going to say there's an easy way to separate the two. If you take all of the things that we used to brag about, where you went to school, how many trucks you have, how many computers you have, your awards, your licenses, say habla español, whatever it is, people used to lead with those messages. My suggestion nowadays is that we don't lead with those messages. We lead about the title of the book, all about them. However, those things are what we call RTBs, reasons to believe. And so they're incredibly effective afterwards, after someone is interested in what you have to say, after you've established an emotional relationship with them, after you've demonstrated that it's all about them, then you give them the RTBs, where you went to school, what you've learned, what awards you've won, because then they can say, you can do those things for me because, and then they have the list. Now, that's where transparency becomes very important, because in the old days, you could lie about that stuff and not really have to worry about getting caught. That is no longer true. Today, everybody knows everything. And so the RTBs must be accurate. My only suggestion is that you don't lead with them. You save them for demonstrating why your positioning makes sense.
Well, and and that's exactly what happens nowadays. Employers will go and look at people's social media. If they say, I've done all these things, they'll check that out first before they
Indeed they will
hire them or not. And I've seen that actually happen with one of my clients firsthand, so I know how that is. So in your book, you talk about scaling the pyramid to success. So what does that mean?
Well, I give a little diagram. It's what's called the classic brand pyramid. It's how the big companies that you're very familiar with, when they have products that they want to create brands for, they actually use the brand pyramid. And the brand pyramid is 5 steps that takes you up to what the brand essence is of your company, of your profession, of your product, of your service, of yourself, whatever it is you're trying to sell. So I was really using the metaphor of the pyramid being an actual pyramid, that as you climb it, as you scale the pyramid, as you get closer and closer to the top, that's where the real success lies.
Well, and a lot of times people are so focused on themselves, it's hard for them to get outside that box and do that work.
Exactly, and that's one of the reasons why using the pyramid exercise is so effective, because you get the opportunity to do that focus on yourself, but it's at the very base of the pyramid. You get to put down all of your attributes, all the things you have, all the things you do, all the things you pay for. Remember, most of us who run businesses, we spend most of our time in operational hell, really, making sure that we're making payroll, we're paying the rent, we're paying the mortgage, we're doing all of that. And so that becomes front and center importance to us. But it's only cost of entry to our customers. When you do the exercise, you get to take all of that out of your head and put it and document it. So you're giving it the honor it deserves. You're memorializing it. But then my hope is you move beyond. You go from all of your attributes to what we call PODs, points of difference and points of distinction. What makes you special? What makes you different? Not unique, because unique is an absolute term, but different. Then you move up to the functional benefits of what your customer gets from what you do, which, by the way, is where most advertisers and branders stop. Here's what I got. Here's why I'm special. Here's what you get. That's where most stop. But then we move up one more step. This is as we scale up the pyramid. We move up one more step to emotional benefits. What are the emotional benefits that your customers, and more importantly, your potential customers, get from doing business with you? And then you go to the final step, which is, in essence, how do you communicate that to your employees, to your customers, to your regulators, to journalists, to your spouse, to everyone who needs to understand why you matter? Yeah.
Well, and I know in your book you discuss it was Prius politics in regards to the transition that they made so people would be able to emotionally connect with the vehicle that they were purchasing and how that shaped the consumer's mind. Can you kind of discuss that a little bit for our listeners?
Sure, I'd be delighted to. And you used the perfect word, Marianne. Thank you. You said how shape, because shape is the whole key. Toyota released the Prius hybrid about the same time that Honda released the Civic hybrid. You could argue that they were fairly similar cars in length and wheelbase and weight, in function, what they could do, the way they used battery power and braking power to extend your mileage and to make you a conscious, eco-friendly consumer. The big difference was that Honda used their existing Civic and put 5 letters on the back, H-Y-B-R-I-D, 6 letters, sorry. They put hybrid on the back, where Prius designed an entire new car, that little doorstop wedge-shaped thing that we've all seen. Mm-hmm. The messaging that the two automobiles sent was very different. The function of the two automobiles was the same. They get you from point A to point B. They use less gas. The price, I'm sure, was quite similar. But the function of the messaging of the two products was very different. Prius said, I care about ecology. I care about the world. Look at me. I want to make a difference. So much so that look who drove them. Harrison Ford, Keanu Reeves, Gwyneth Paltrow, all people that we know care very much about their image, A, and B, can pretty much afford to drive anything they want. But they drove the car that said, I care about the world. Prius said, I care about the world. Honda Civic Hybrid said, I'm driving a cheap car. Because it was indistinguishable from the hybrid, from the regular model, except for those 5 letters. It's no surprise that Honda stopped making the Honda Civic Hybrid, and Prius became an overnight sensation because people were able to express themselves through this automobile that they drove. And it wasn't until Tesla came out with a car that was able to say, I care about the world and I'm rich, that someone else was able to make a dent in this market using the messaging that the product provides.
Yeah, and what a great example that is, because I know in your book you also talk about how, you know, great brands make us feel good about ourselves, and that's such the perfect example in regards to that, because they want to step above what everyone else is doing. It was easy for people to stick hybrid on their car and then call it something different, but to really market it in a different way where people can connect with it emotionally, that was some genius.
Well, and it had been done before. If you remember those great ads that showed 2 kids pull up next to a guy in a Dodge or a Chrysler, and they say, "Is that a Hemi?" Now, they have the 4 letters, H-E-M-I, on the back of the car, right? And then the guy peels out because he's driving a Hemi. And people then, wow, Hemi means performance. Except I think you'd have a really hard time finding very many people who actually know what Hemi means. It's short for hemispheric because the pistons have hemispherical heads, and on and on and on. I could tell you the engineering function of it. But the truth is, it's the 4 letters, Hemi, that gives all of the panache to the automobile, just like Honda tried to do, but Toyota outthought them by providing a shape that did it instantly. It's become as iconic almost as the Coca-Cola bottle for saying something when you see that shape.
You can automatically, there's that brand identification with it. People automatically know what that's all about, and they get that feeling that associates with it.
Yes.
Now, have you ever come across a business that says, we're too complicated for you to brand? We've got way too much stuff going on. There's no way you can brand us. I mean, there should be a way, and especially you being the guru, to brand anything.
I'm laughing because I love the way you started. That was so sweet. Have you ever come across, Marianne, I always come across someone who says that. I did a workshop on Saturday, and the first thing out of someone's mouth, and this is exactly how it goes. I make the presentation, I explain the whole thing, we're ready to get down to work, and then someone will raise their hand and say, excuse me, I understand everything you're saying, and it's really nice and really cute, and I kind of like it, but, you see, we're different. We are so, and then fill in the blank, so creative, so global, so worldly, so whatever. But there's no way that we could do this. And of course, and then they kind of make that little nodding finger thing. Of course, it works for everybody else out there, and they kind of like discounting the rest of the world, right? But that would never work for us. Yes, almost everybody I talk to, every company has someone in the company that says that. And the example I almost always give is Volvo. Volvo, in my mind, is in the most complicated business in the world. They manufacture automobiles, buses, trucks, but that means they make engines, braking systems, fuel systems, electrical systems. They're in the computer business. They're in the upholstery business. They're in the paint business. Obviously, they're in the manufacturing and the transportation business. I think they sell in 147 countries around the world, so they're in the logistics business. They're in the currency business because how do you take Japanese yen and convert them into, Swedish kroners? So they're in that, the banking business. Then you think about their locations. When you go into a dealership, they're in the retail business. But they not only sell product, they also buy back old product. Who does that other than car dealers? And they don't only buy back their own product. You can go trade a BMW or a Ford in on a Volvo. So they buy back other product, which they resell. They also do repairs. They also do financing. They also sell insurance, and on and on and on and on. They are in the most complicated business in the world. Yet you can describe who they are, what they do, and what they do for you with one word. And everybody knows it. And it, by the way, has nothing to do with the function of what an automobile does. The function of an automobile is to get you from point A to point B. Yet Volvo sells themselves totally and solely on the word safety.
Mm-hmm.
And usually when I say that, then they look at me and they want to say, yeah, but we're different. Then I talk to them about hospitals, and there's plenty of other businesses you can talk about that do the same thing. So yes, I hear it all the time. No, I don't believe it.
Well, yeah, I figure if anyone's heard any of that, it would be you. Now,
you're right.
Now, I know in your book you also talk about, in the book All About Them, Grow Your Business by Focusing on Others, you talk about how being consistent can actually hurt your brand. Can you expand on that just a little bit?
Well, it's quite simple. Consistency is an important part of building a brand message. You need to make sure that once you figure out what it is you're about, you say it over and over and over again. Obviously, because nobody's going to spend the time it takes to learn about all your little differences and uniquenesses. At the same time, we all have the attention span of gnats, and more so today because of these electronic devices we use. We are being bombarded by information all the time. So while I say that repeat, it's important to be consistent, ironically, that doesn't mean you can be repetitive. You have to come up with interesting, unique ways of saying the same thing, but in a new, compelling manner, so people will pay attention. Otherwise, they simply say, I heard that already. You have to stay relevant, and you stay relevant by knowing who you are, knowing what you provide to your audience, and then spending your time, effort, and resources on getting your message out in new and compelling ways.
Mm. Well, Bruce, thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us here today. It's been such a joy to have you here.
It was an absolute treat. Thank you. I'm thrilled you read the book. Your questions were great. It's a delight to talk to you.
Oh, thank you. If you would like to connect with Bruce, you can go to his website at bruceturkel.com, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. Our next guest is quite the adventurer, and she's here today to talk to us about her new book, Unbound, a story of snow and self-discovery. So let's welcome to the show, Steph Jagger.
Well, thank you so much for having me. What a pleasure.
Oh, what a joy it is to have you here. And what a story you have.
Yeah, it's a heck of a story, sure.
Well, so for our listeners that are learning about your book, and I highly suggest that they go out and purchase Unbound. You can pick it up at all major retailers. But for our listeners that are kind of getting, just learning about you, what inspired you to quit your job, take a second mortgage on your house, and basically follow one big snow adventure after another?
Yeah, this is such a good question. And it's a question, like what inspired you or why did you do it is something I get asked a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And, the answer is I was a little bit bored. I had a bit of a dissatisfaction or discontent with the life that I was living up in Vancouver, British Columbia at the time. And I was kind of searching for something more or different, although I couldn't quite put my finger on what that was. So I thought that if I immersed myself, in my own joy, which is to travel and to write and to ski for a year, something would shift and perhaps I would discover what it is I was kind of searching for. And that is, in fact, what happened along the way. So that's the real reason. And it's something I get a little bit of pushback on, like, well, was that a good enough reason? Like, there was no episode that started you off. There was no tragedy you were running away from, stuff like that. And I think that's what's so unique about this book and about my story. And to be honest, a lot of stories of the women that I've met on the road, going from, good to great and strong to stronger. I think this is something that's a little bit missing from our female narrative. So I'm really excited to be chatting about it.
Oh, I am too, without a doubt. And I think, as when you worked a position, you were highly successful in the job you were in. Mm-hmm. And when you get to that point, you've won all the awards, you've gotten all the accolades, you make great money, and you're still not satisfied, then that's actually a good enough reason to have a whole switch. And I could relate with your writing so well. I'm like, ooh, wow. And I think it offers a lot of inspiration for women that we don't have to be stuck in these roles. We can define it any way we want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Joseph Campbell has a brilliant quote. I might mess it up, but it goes something like, if you can see your path laid out in front of you step by step, it's not your path. Mm-hmm. And that sometimes we need to give up the life that we have planned so as to accept the one that's waiting for us. And that just kind of sums up the whole reason and the motivation behind the journey in entirety.
I don't think that could be better said, because it really, if it really is easy, and a lot of people do feel like they get stuck in maybe a career that really isn't their life purpose. And then kind of look at it and go, gosh, how did I get here? So.
Yeah, and this is an important thing too, is that, this kind of, this state of like boredom and discontent, and when we find ourselves searching for something more, or feeling like there might be something more, or when we feel a bit stuck, that's the foundation in what I would call the house of change. Mm-hmm. And it's very hard to make a change or make a shift from that place. So quite often, we wait and we let our discontent or our like simmering boredom turn into, self-sabotage and overeating. And then if we put it off for ages, it turns into much bigger things like rage and addiction and disease, the things that will force you to change. And that's difficult. It involves a lot of suffering because of the stuff that happens there. But it is also, it removes some of the accountability and the ownership as well.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Well, and to be able to kind of take the reins yourself and say, well, you know what? This might not be what everyone would do, but this is what I'm going to do, and make these decisions. To do all these things and to be able to set yourself up in a courageous adventure. I think a lot of people are looking at this going, wow, I could do that.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. And I really hope so for women. I hope this acts as a kind of permission to say, if you are in that kind of search mode or stuck, or, you can make shifts from that place rather than wait for something else that's potentially negative to happen. So I hope that's what the book does in the world.
Yeah, you don't have to wait for the pain. Now, I know in your book you talk a lot about self-discovery. What do you feel was like the biggest lesson for you?
Well, there was a lot of lessons, but I think the biggest shift for me was moving from a real kind of masculine ideal that I developed as a young girl and young woman that was very much ego-based. I am in charge. Just set me and my willpower loose in the world and we can accomplish whatever we want, which included a lot of kind of what I call fear-based motivation. Yeah. Trying to do stuff to be enough, to be seen, et cetera, in a certain way. And I think one of the biggest things that I learned was shifting that fear-based motivation to what I call a love-based motivation. The things that I choose to do now and the goals that I set for myself are set in a way that's much more along the lines of the questions of, will this help me grow, expand, transform, connect with other people? Is this coming from a place of calling versus a place of ego? So that was a huge shift, as well as the shift for me from a real masculine ideal in my early life to a much more balanced ideal. The book involves such a rescuing of the feminine that I had really just shoved aside in myself. And so balancing that out now, that's been a big learning and a big shift.
I think from my experience in business, when I first became self-employed, it was kind of the same thing. You use this masculine energy because you're in the business world thinking that that's what we need to propel ourselves, when it's really, like you're saying, it's that balance that brings that in.
Yes. Yes,
so, and it's great that we have books like yours, Unbound, that we could pick up and helps us to look at a different way, gain a different perspective on, what's possible for having that type of balance in life, even when we're out taking these great adventures.
Yeah, and I think that's another important point is the adventure, because I know that there's going to be a lot of people listening that are going to be like, okay, great, but I can't take a year off and ski around the world. And I think it's important to define adventure as something that simply gets you outside of your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. That could be joining a running club for 2 months. That could be setting a goal of knitting a whole bunch of stuff, or taking art classes or something like that. It doesn't need to be this very, very kind of grandiose, huge adventure in the sense that I took. I think that's an important distinction to make, because I wouldn't want to discourage people from seeking adventure that fits into their own definition.
Oh, yeah. Well, adventure, and I like how you describe that, because it does have a lot of different definitions, and really getting outside your comfort zone is adventure enough for a lot of people.
Yes, absolutely. It's anything outside of your comfort zone that's going to help you learn, grow, transform, expand. That's I think the goal of life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
without a doubt. So now, with everything that you have going on here, I have to ask, you've got the book. Where is this? What story is happening beyond the book? What's next in your plans?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think it fits in alignment with the question that I get a lot, which is like, what's on your bucket list? What's next for you? And I think this is one of the things that shifted as well so dramatically for me, is I probably would have, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, being able to list out, here's 10 things that are next. Mm-hmm. I want to travel here. I want to do this. I want to, all this stuff. And there's what's next, and what fills up my bucket list now is 2 things. 1, am I listening for the call to adventure? And 2, do I have the courage to say yes when I hear it? So in essence, that's what's next for me. In a tangible sense, what does that mean? I'm starting to hear a call of a second book. And so I'm hoping that I'll be able to set aside some time this summer to start, kind of making progress on that. And I think my husband and I are also feeling very called to move back to the mountains. We live in San Diego right now, and we've been there for a handful of years. And I think it's time to get ourselves back into big nature and in the mountains. So I think those are 2 things on the horizon.
Well, you know what? Colorado's got some great mountains and ski resorts.
Colorado is at the top of the list. It's between Colorado and British Columbia right now. And believe me, we've done our research on mountain towns all across North America. And there's so many here. Yeah. So we're thinking the top of the list right now is the Roaring Fork Valley, but we'll see. We'll see. We've got a couple more months to narrow things down.
Yeah, hey, I get it. I moved here to Colorado 5 years ago from Southern California, and there's no snow in Southern California. So it's kind of a tough deal. Well, Steph, I know our listeners can visit your website at stephjagger.com to learn more about the book and sign up for your newsletter and be part of your community.
Yeah, absolutely. I also love to connect with people on Instagram. It's at Steph Jagger. I just really love meeting people that way and connecting with people in different cities and places, over social media. It's so much fun.
Oh. Well, Dino, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us today. When your next book comes out, please feel to reach out to us. We want to hear about it.
We will do. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, thank you. We're going to pause here for a quick break. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. You can learn more about the show at momentswithmarianne.com. We'll be right back after these messages.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 1, 2, 3 by Ken Elliott.
For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
Ben Wexler is a gifted leadership development and strategy consultant for professionals who want to transform their organizations and careers. Through a uniquely personalized set of processes, participants discover their unique knowledge, how to leverage that knowledge and experience, and then put it all together with a global strategy. You're more valuable, your organization is more valuable, and the change is viral. Contact Ben at 630-881-1074. 630-881-1074.
Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so excited we're going to be spending this time today with Louisa Thomsen Brits, and she's here today to talk to us about her new book, The Book of Hygge. So welcome to the show, Louisa.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, what a delight it is to have you here. Now, gosh, your book is all about being connected. And I was really curious because it talks about in your book how the Danes are some of the happiest people in the world, and it's because of the small rituals and being present in everyday life. How does Hygge come into the picture?
Hygge is it's a quality of presence, an experience of belonging togetherness, whether that's to the moment if you're alone or to other people. It is often associated with happiness, but actually I think it's part of something bigger than that. I think it's part of that paradigm shift that we're all experiencing at the moment, away from the kind of preoccupation with productivity and the relentless pursuit of individual happiness towards a deeper stability of contentment and perhaps even interconnectedness.
I think that's something we can use more now than ever before, especially with, the instant gratification that one can get from just their phones. I mean, we're constantly connected. You can't go anywhere with being surrounded by a bunch of people looking down. Yeah,
it's unfortunate. I mean, really, Hygge is about participating wholly in the moment. And we can't do that if we're constantly engaged with our phones and distracted. So it is about putting down our distractions and to a degree putting down our cares and leaving them aside just for a moment. Hygge is a brief restorative pause, really nothing more than that. And we can Hygge anytime, anywhere, alone or in company.
So where did the principles of Hygge develop? Where did that start?
Well, Denmark used to be a very large, used to have a very large territory. And in many years ago, they lost much of that territory. And so they were encouraged to, rather than to see that loss as an outward loss, they were encouraged to see it as an inward gain. And so Danes are very good at appreciating the small things in life and making the best at whatever they have. They place an emphasis on the inner sphere of people and places and things. And I think that's the generation of Hygge. It was actually a word borrowed from the Norwegians, pinched from the Norwegians many years ago.
Yeah. Well, and that was one of the things in your book. The book was just, to me, I thought it offered so much, and as far as personal peace and from some of perspective. Yeah, of course. And the perspective that it gives also about how in Denmark, like the work environments, there's a culture to encourage familiarity and diminish that isolation that a lot of times people, can fall into, at least here in the U.S. I think that's a big thing where people are feeling lonely. And I was so impressed by that.
Yeah, I think as far as the workplace is concerned, I think that the way that we work, the way that the Danes work, they work less. They work shorter hours. They don't wear that badge of busyness. They value calm and a kind of relaxed productivity rather than frantic activity. And I think they pay attention to each other. Perhaps if we could imagine our lives as an integrated whole, and consider our working life in the future as maybe we'll still have to sprint, but maybe that can be followed by periods of rest and restorative ease, a sort of lull in the proceedings. Hygge is that power, the power of the pause, whether at home or at work.
Yeah, I've got quite a few questions, and I hope we can get through at least some of them here. Because I was so just intrigued by this whole principle of being in the moment. And in your book, you describe, about the simple pleasures of, working in a flower bed with a friend and taking a long bath and cracking the window and listening to the city around and just being in that present moment. It sounded so delicious. It was begging me to just, do simple things and be more present and kind of dive into the experience that Hygge offers.
I suppose it's an ability to be at peace with yourself. And that's a characteristic really highly respected in Denmark. And a presence is much more rewarding and intricate than an art, than productivity. I think quite often our identities are usurped by social and professional pressures. It was Søren Kierkegaard who said that the most common form of despair is not being who you are. And I suppose when we Hygge, we are wholly and uncomplicatedly present. It's about presence and participation, and also about pleasure, the uncomplicated pleasure of maybe sometimes self-indulgence, maybe sometimes listening to others, maybe sometimes just sitting on a windowsill and looking out at the street and enjoying a bit of stillness.
It really has one connecting with those moments, these moments where we can be completely present and enjoy everything that the world has to offer. Now, if someone wants to develop a Hygge practice at home, what are some of the examples and how they can develop some of the principles in their daily life?
I really don't think that you need the Danish lifestyle or the secrets even of a Scandinavian lifestyle to learn how to Hygge. I think we all do it. It's a universal impetus. So maybe the best place is to start by asking yourself, where do you feel most at home? What are the activities and customs that anchor you, and who are the people that make you feel at ease? And what do you do to unwind? Often Hygge comes to the surface when we're engaged in our hobbies. And I suppose, what do you reach for and who do you reach for comfort and a sense of belonging? And then maybe it's as simple as putting down your cares, setting aside a moment, and then delineating that moment, temporal or physical. So make time for each other, make time for yourself, define the boundaries. And that creates a sense of shelter and enclosure and security. And it means you can really dwell in the moment. I suppose that's where the association with mindfulness comes up.
Yes.
And make arrangements that provide warmth and comfort and nourishment. Cluster together and unwrap a package of good feelings, or open a bottle of wine, or make a cup of tea. And concentrate on the materiality of your life, what touches you. Invite intimacy and dim the lights, and I suppose enter the moment wholeheartedly for however long it lasts, and celebrate it. Pay attention to each other and let go and celebrate it, because the moment is passing.
In your book, you talk about how Hygge is communicated through what we do as opposed to what we have. So I was real impressed with that, because we can go ahead and start our practice, as you were just saying, with
the daily things that we do, as opposed to having to go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff for rituals.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that we all engage in rituals and routines that are already part of our lives, and I think it's about making space for them and perhaps doing them with more clarity, more attention. You can't curate Hygge. It is uncontrived. It's actually more about imperfection than creating this perfect moment. It is without defense or artifice. I mean, it's an invitation to intimacy and connection, and you don't need to buy stuff to invite intimacy. And that probably, if intimacy is our capacity to identify with each other, I really believe that at the moment that can only be a good thing, because that empathy is akin to solidarity, and I think we need it. Globally, we need that right now, that language of empathy in Hygge and solidarity.
Without a doubt. I mean, without a doubt. I think that's something now more than ever, as you were saying, so we can strive for and look to, develop that more. And as people read your book and understand how Hygge can be, developed by just looking for these simple pleasures in life, I think that helps. And also the inclusiveness, that I think that's a big piece. You also talk in your book about Hygge is based on trust. How does that play a part?
I suppose because Hygge is based on tender values, trust and respect and open communication and a sense of sort of reciprocity and as I said, empathy. And trust is it's very important to all of us. I was going to say it's very important to the Danes, but to Hygge is to create a place of safety. The foundation of Hygge is a sense of trust and security, because when we Hygge, we shelter each other from the pressures of life, even just for a moment, and trust each other enough to really dwell in the moment and learn to let go. And I suppose trust each other enough that we recognize that for that short period of time, each one of us is still aware of everything that exists on the periphery of that experience. But we've put down our problems. So that mutual sheltering, although it can sometimes be seen as exclusive, it's very nurturing and it relies on trust.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today, Louisa.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to tune in today. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.